In the last video, we mentioned the paper cartridge that was always used in the European musketeers, and especially the infantry of the 18th and 19th centuries. Meanwhile, during this age, actually the whole of Joseon was standing in the way of more and more soldiers who becoming the musketeers with a muzzle loader as well. For a soldier to use a muzzle loader, one of the hard points is how to measure the right charge of the black powder into the barrel. So the people in the west of this continent gradually found that we can measure out the gunpowder in advance, and used a piece of paper or a tube used in the early time to pack the powder and the lid blow up. So at this moment, there is a question that is appearing in my mind. How did the Eastern muzzle-loader soldiers prepare their gunpowder charge for their muskets? So in this video, let's talk about the musket cartridge in ancient East Asia. If we want to know the musket cartridge, we will need to notice the musket in East Asia. So let's come back to 500 years ago, in the 16th century, in the Japanese Sengoku period. The musket was introduced into Japan, and because of more and more wars appeared, so the matchlock grew up quickly in Japan until the later part of the 16th century. After the Japanese invasions of Korea, many Japanese gunsmiths were captured by Joseon's army or surrendered to Joseon, didn't back to their country, Japan, but stayed in Joseon. So then, they helped Joseonites to build up their own matchlock musket, finally. So the Korean matchlock was very similar with the Japanese matchlock. Meanwhile, some Japanese long-neck pirates always attacked the coastal areas of Ming dynasty. So this also became one of the ways that the matchlock muskets were introduced into China. Plus, in fact, there were another two ways that the muskets were imported into the Ming dynasty. One of the ways was from the Portuguese in Macau. This kind of gun was called 西洋铳, the Western firearm. The another way was from the Islamic world, and this kind of gun might be bought from some businessman and was called 鲁密铳, the Lu Mi firearm. Then, the time came around the 17th century. China had another new dynasty, the Qing dynasty, which inherited almost all of the legacy of the Ming dynasty, the law, the society, and even included the home of emperor, the Forbidden City in Beijing. So in some ways, the emperors of Qing dynasty might be lived in a used house, but it just was the topest level palace in this country. For the Qing dynasty, after many wars in the 17th and the 18th centuries, and even in some battles, many Joseonese musket soldiers were mobilized on the battlefront to help the army of the Qing dynasty. In addition, over time, the musket also had some new styles, like the pistol handle, the fork of gun, the musket cavalryman, etc. As for what were the details, the changing of the Qing dynasty from the Ming dynasty might be a big research project, so we just can't continue talking about this topic deeper in this video. So now, this may be the spread and connection of the musket tech in East Asia. We can find that East Asian musket attack influenced each other, so the musket cartridge also had very intimately linked. Actually, not only the musket attack influenced each other, but also the musketeers had many similar equipment. According to many vintage collections, articles, paintings, etc., there are two main approaches to get the red gunpowder charge for a muzzle loader of a musketeer. So now, at first let's talk about the first way, and also this is the most different from the European soldiers' way of charging the musket. But for some normal people who use the musket or rifle, like hunters, they might use the similar approach with the East Asian soldiers to get the musket cartridge. There were two important tools, which were two kind of different gunpowder flasks. One of the flasks was the main gunpowder flask. In Japanese, it's doyakuire or goyakuire. In Korean is Huayatong. In Chinese Ming Dynasty was called Yao Guan. In the Qing Dynasty is Mo was called Da Yao Hulu or Huo Yao Hulu and Shumgan. And here I found an explanation in Manchu language for this flask. The meaning is that this is a flask which serves gunpowder. This flask actually also had a special gadget. This is the cap of the flask. Usually, the cap can keep the gunpowder in just enough for one shot of musket. We can find some people selling the ancient collections among the vintage items. There are many old Japanese gunpowder flasks also on the website. We can see the cap has exactly one space. On the other side, the Chinese gunpowder flask also has a space on the inside. In addition, there is a word which got my attention. This is 火药葫芦管子, the pipe of gunpowder flask, and its Manchu translation is mialiko. Its word root is mialin, and this root can express measure. When it gets the verb suffix, the word will become mialinbe, and this is the verb measure. So mialiko can be translated into measurer. When we see the cap of the gunpowder flask, we can find this really takes the work of measuring, and meanwhile this gadget really looks like a pipe. Although I didn't find out the exact explanation in the dictionary, I think we may still think this word is the cap of a gunpowder flask. For a musketeer, he can pour out the gunpowder from the flask and use the cap to measure the right charge for one shot. Then another one was the priming powder flask. This was called koyakuyire or kuchikosuriire in Japanese. In Korean is kinyangtong, but we need to notice that the Korean premium powder flask was not very necessary. Sometimes the ancient Korean musketeers could directly use the main powder flask to prime the pen of their musket, just like this picture. Coincidentally, according to some ancient wall paintings in China, there might have been a similar situation. When we noticed China, the priming powder flask was called Fa Yao Guan in the Ming Dynasty, and Hong Yao Hulu and Shan Yao Toi Kwacha in the Qing Dynasty. In addition, I also found that the dictionary might give us some details about this flask in the Qing Dynasty. This means this flask was made from horns and can serve the priming powder. When I collected the materials for this video, I saw an interesting thing, which is this Manchu word, Kwacha Ibeli, and its corresponding Han Chinese word is Hong Yao Hulu Kou, which means the mouth of a priming powder flask. So this Manchu language word might be the word Shan Yao Toi Kwacha Ibeli for short. But why did the Asian people use this word, Beli, as the mouth of flask? In Manchu language, Beli means bow. I always wondered why, but until I saw this painting, it seems I finally got it. The Beli, bow, might describe the spring which can plug the hole of this horn flask with the force of the spring. In fact, using the spring to plug was a common design around the world, but comparatively, it is more like the Islamic style powder flask. Okay, now this is the second approach to prepare the musket cartridge, and this is very similar with the European musketeers, especially the matchlock musketeers, because the musketeers in both areas, East Asia and Europe, had a kind of same tube as the powder charge container, and this powder tube was always made from bamboo or sometimes wood. The usage also is the same with the European tubes. The soldiers could directly pour all of the powder of the tube into the barrel, and then they would pour the gunpowder from the priming powder flask to prime the pen of musket. And sometimes soldiers also use the main powder flask to prime directly, just like the powder flask. This kind of tube cartridge also had a different name in East Asia. In China, not only in the Ming dynasty, but also the Qing dynasty, this gear was called Yao Guan, and in Manchu language, it was Octoxihan, which was the translation of the Han Chinese language literally, and means the powder tube. In Japan, this tube was called Hayago, and is also one of the most iconic equipment for a typical Asian Japanese musketeer or a matchlock samurai. In Korea, this gadget's name was Jukguan, the bamboo tube. Okay, this is today's video. Hope you can like this video. Have a good day. See you next time. Bye.